Back in 2014, the first Moto 360 smartwatch was released, and Google used this beautiful round watch to promote Android Wear. Today, Android Wear has morphed into Wear OS, and it can be used with an iOS device. More on that in just a minute. But even though the Moto 360 seemed like it was a hit, it only lasted 2 generations. Today, a company called eBuyNow secured the Moto name for licensing and then created a 3rd generation version of this watch that definitely feels a lot like the Moto 360 of the past. But is it worth purchasing today? Before we get started, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell to get notifications whenever we share a video. Now, as someone who prefers a round watch over the square design that we're used to seeing on the Apple Watch, I definitely understand why the original Moto 360 was so popular. In 2020, a good circular smartwatch isn't as hard to come by these days, and so the new Moto 360 will need to offer up a bit more than an attractive design in order for me to consider making a full-time switch. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you can pair a Wear OS watch with an iPhone, and that's exactly what I did with the Moto 360 and my iPhone 11 Pro Max for this part of the video. Now, I'm going to admit, this part is going to be short and underwhelming, much like the functionality and feature set of a Wear OS watch paired with an iOS device. If you really want a smartwatch that can read text messages, notify you of phone calls, and track your fitness through Google Fit, then I guess this is the perfect watch for you, because on iOS, that's pretty much all it's capable of doing. So on the Moto 360, you cannot answer a phone call on your watch. You cannot interact with any messages that come in aside from just dismissing them. And most notably for me, it doesn't interact with any of my devices that I own, like unlocking my MacBook or approving purchases and passwords on my Mac. That's not a knock on the watch, because I always wondered what's the point of opening up this sort of cross-platform functionality if it's going to be extremely stripped down. And so this is more of a Wear OS and iOS kind of just not working well together. So for our Apple viewers out there, this is probably not the right choice for you. I'd probably avoid picking this up. Now, for those who have an Android device and are thinking about getting this watch, well, I'm happy to report that although it is an expensive option, I don't think you'll be disappointed with this Moto 360 reboot. Starting at a hefty $349, the Moto 360 comes in 3 different finishes: rose gold, steel gray, and phantom black. It does come with 2 bands inside the box, a rubber band for your more active days, and a nice leather band for when you need to dress it up a bit. The charging cradle, it's not the best solution. I don't really like it, but it can charge your battery from 0 to 100% in an hour, and the Moto 360 still promotes all-day battery, but I've definitely been able to get 2 days at least, even with the always-on display feature enabled. Now, speaking of that display, that is kind of the main attraction, and it's a 42mm watch that offers up full circular OLED display that can get pretty bright and vibrant for a smartwatch. The right side offers up 2 buttons, one that sort of acts as your main button for accessing apps and going back to the watch face, and it can even be rotated just like the Apple Watch's digital crown, so that you can navigate through menus a lot easier than just swiping up and down. And it's also a nice touch for those who don't want to swipe up and down on their display, kind of getting it all dirty and gross. The second button, well, that can be customized to quickly launch any app that you would like. The watch is also water resistant up to 3 meters, and it's really thick and durable, which is great because that means they included a huge battery like I just mentioned, but it's not too thick that it's uncomfortable on your wrist. It's actually the perfect size for my wrist particularly, but I do like that it has a little bit of extra durability to it, and I don't feel like I'm going to break it if I happen to drop it when I take it off. The watch comes loaded with Google apps, including the Play Store, as you can download apps directly from your watch without having to use your phone. And honestly, this watch is capable of doing all the basic features and functions any other smartwatch can do. But the problem for me is Wear OS. I'll admit, it's gotten way better since the Android Wear days and since the last time I've used it. But now you have features like tiles, which can be set up to access your most frequently used apps or features. You can use Google Pay for purchases, track your workouts, make phone calls, send texts, etc. But everything to me just feels a bit sluggish. I'm not quite sure if it's the watch or the operating system, but the watch will go through multiple freakouts a day where I'll tap on an item and nothing happens for a few seconds, and I'll tap on it again and it tries to do everything really quick and then just freezes up and eventually just gets me back to my watch face and closes everything that I was doing. The watch will also randomly disconnect itself, so Bluetooth pairing just disconnects a few times throughout the day, though this happened way more often when connected to my iPhone than my Pixel 4, so that could again be another casualty of using Wear OS with iOS. I've also used a few Fossil smartwatches that run Wear OS, and I've had similar issues like I've mentioned before, which leads me to believe that Google has a lot of work to do with its Wear OS platform still. But if you are a big fan of this ecosystem, the Moto 360 is still one of the nicer looking smartwatches that's available today. I do think $349 is a bit high, even though you do get a nice high quality leather band and a sport band per se with it, which is a lot more than any other company usually includes inside the box with their watches. I definitely wait for it to drop below that sub 300 price point before considering purchasing. But for those of you who are looking for something stylish and are going to use this watch with an Android device, and you want to relive that original Moto 360 glory days, this could be worth checking out, honestly. Now, again, if you're an Apple user, I do need to reiterate, this would not be the route to go in my opinion. A Series 3 Apple Watch starts at $199. Sure, it's not round and beautiful like this watch, but it's perfectly adequate. It has way more functionality and it'll save you $250. But I would love to know your thoughts on the new Moto 360. Do you love the design but wish it had more functionality with iOS devices? Are you thinking about picking one up to use with your iPhone, or are you going to use it with an Android device? Go ahead and let me know in the comment section down below. This has been Dan with Mac Rumors. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you around in the next video.